In the Gospels, Jesus is always inviting people to follow him. The very first Christians called themselves the followers of the way, meaning that they followed Jesus' way. So what does it mean to follow the way of Jesus? Hi, I'm Father Rick Morley. I'm the rector of St. David's Radnor in Wayne, Pennsylvania, and in this series, we're exploring who Jesus was and who Jesus is. At some point, we've all gotten in a car to follow someone somewhere. We don't know the way, but they do, and so we follow them. Following them is not a one-moment thing, a one-time thing. You have to keep following them. Every turn, through every light, even when a car gets in between you and them, you have to keep following them, or you lose them, and then you are lost. Following Jesus is the same. It's more of a state of being. We wake up every morning and choose to follow Jesus through every turn and every light. Following Jesus is about faith, but not just faith as belief. In the New Testament, faith isn't something that happens only in your mind. It's not just your intellect. Faith means something closer to trust, like something you trust with your gut. To follow Jesus means to trust in Jesus, to trust in Jesus' way of living, to trust the way of the cross, to trust Jesus' new life of resurrection. Jesus tells his disciples that no one can enter the kingdom of God unless they come as a child. Children are, if anything, trusting. The point isn't to become childish, but childlike in our willingness to trust in God even when everything is falling apart around us. In St. Paul's letters, he hammers faith or trust over and over again. He calls us to live lives of faith, trusting in God, in Jesus' death and his resurrection. In the 11th chapter of the letter to the Hebrews, we find a compendium of people in the Old Testament who lived by faith. We'll hear about Noah, who by faith built an ark. We'll hear about Moses, who by faith rescued Israel. We'll hear about Rahab, who by faith took care of the spies in Jericho. Faith doesn't just live in the head. It's the trust that we have that informs what we do. Following Jesus is about changing ourselves more and more so that people can see Jesus in us. Jesus tells his disciples that they must take up their own cross and follow him. Following Jesus means to love our neighbor enough, to love the people around us enough, to love even our enemies enough that we are willing to give of ourselves for them, to seek not our own advancement, but be willing to give things up, to serve instead of finding ways to be served. Following Jesus is about letting God transform us into people of love. Remember, Jesus taught us who to love, God, our neighbor, our enemy, and then on the night before Jesus' death, he taught us how to love. Love one another as I have loved you, he said. Jesus' way is about love. Following Jesus means becoming a person of love. Following Jesus is about trusting that Jesus is still alive and active and looking for Jesus all around us. In the 25th chapter of Matthew, Jesus tells his disciples that when they feed the hungry, they are actually feeding him. When they care for a person who is sick or visit someone who's in prison, they are actually caring for him. The people who hear Jesus say this respond, "Lord, when did we see you hungry or sick or in prison?" And Jesus says that when you cared for those in need, they were, unbeknownst to them, actually caring for Jesus. Jesus was there, and they didn't know it. In the Gospel of Luke, on the evening of the first Easter day, the two disciples leave Jerusalem to go to another town called Emmaus. They meet this stranger on the way, and they start talking to him. They talk to him about Jesus. When they get to Emmaus, the stranger takes bread, gives thanks to God, breaks it, and gives it to them. And in that moment, they realize that it wasn't a stranger. It had been Jesus all along. Jesus was right there, and they didn't know it. In John's Gospel, Mary Magdalene goes to the tomb on Easter morning, and when she finds the tomb empty, she's distraught. She looks around and sees a man standing there. She asks the man, who she thinks is the gardener, where the body of Jesus was. She speaks to him, and he speaks to her. But it's not until the man calls her by name, Mary, that she realizes that it's actually Jesus standing right there in front of her. Each of these stories tells us that following Jesus isn't just honoring the life of some great person who lived a long time ago, but that Jesus is all around us. We probably encounter Jesus multiple times a day and don't even know it. Following Jesus means that we look for the living Christ among us. We expect Christ to be among us, and we regard everyone as if they were Christ himself, with love, with humility, and service. Do you follow Jesus? If so, how? If someone asked you what it means to be a follower of Jesus, what would you say to them?